My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. I'm your host, you know who I am, Rick Clemons, and it's Pride Month. Let's not forget that it is Pride Month. We are deep into it. And one of the things that I feel is really important when we go through these moments of celebration, even though every day is a celebration as an LGBTQ plus individual, is to really realize how important it is to be in ourselves, to be who we are, to take our mental health seriously, to ensure that we're supporting each other, whether it's in the workspace or outside of that space. And I felt it was a good opportunity to bring someone who specializes in the mental health world. His name is Cory Schneider, and he helps a lot of LGBTQ individuals and others, but LGBTQ individuals really work through leadership and career stuff, personal stuff, finding that way forward, whether you're an individual or a couple, just to really sink into who you are, find those ways forward. A lot of similarities to what I do as a coach, but sometimes even as a coach, I'm like, you would be better off working with a therapist who's a little more trained in certain areas. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Cory and I aren't 100% sure where it's going, but we do have some kickoff points to start to talk about. So Cory, welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here, man.
Hi, thank you, Rick. I am so excited to be here. Really appreciate it.
I know it's almost like we're almost neighbors. We were just talking about that, gang, before we came on, because we don't live that far away from each other. It's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah.
We're not going to get real personal about where each of us is living, but everybody knows where I live, so it doesn't matter. But they don't know my address. That's the scary part. I'm not giving y'all my address. I don't need stalkers.
No.
But, I feel like, Cory, one of the good kickoff points maybe for this conversation is, Pride Month can actually be a really beautiful thing, and it can also be a really it can bring up it can bring up challenges. It can bring up past memories. It can remind us of our coming out stories or the struggles. And I'm just curious, this has to be present in your world too, that the anxiety around this, correct?
I think so. I mean, I think we're in the anxiety generation. There's, I think we're in the anxiety generation, and attention is a commodity. Ever since I think the turn of the century and technology really started to become advanced, we are inundated with data, in a way that maybe we weren't before. And so social media, emails, phone is literally in our pocket. We are getting pinged and dinged, 24/7. And it really takes an intention to separate from that. And so, with the heightened degree of data and messaging that we absorb, as frequently as we do, it makes complete sense that we're going to be somewhat anxious. And then, of course, you compound that with identity, and it can really be destructive at times.
A couple of years, actually, it's been the last couple of years. I know Ariana Huffington has talked about this a lot, put your phone aside and all this sort of stuff. And I used to write for Huffington Post and had a couple of conversations with her, and it was so interesting to talk through this in the bigger scope of the planet, but I also feel like, especially in the LGBTQ space and specifically with gay men, that sometimes that little phone becomes our worst enemy so quickly, because as you said, it creates anxiety, but it's also like barking for our attention, And I actually went through this in my other work that I do. I'm a lead coach for another company, and we had a situation come up where I'm like, okay, we got to create a standard operating procedure about this. Like, what happens? And part of the discussion was, maybe having to alert the team on a weekend. I never want to take away from somebody's weekend. All right. So this would be like an extreme space. And I kind of went through what you described. Okay, I had anxiety around going, okay, well, how I want to do this to respect everybody. But I also don't want them feeling like, oh, my attention is going to be pulled into the workspace. And I think this is really prevalent everywhere. What I've noticed a lot this Pride season, and maybe we can kind of do that, is anxiety is definitely heightened right now. There's
my
a
God.
lot of it going on. What's your take on some of the things you're seeing from the anxiety space? Because I know I can jump in, but I'd love from your perspective to hear some of those things.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I meant about identity. I mean, the LGBT community is no stranger to marginalization. We've always sort of been underrepresented. We've always been targeted with pathologies, and so forth and so on. And then recently, with a lot of what the current administration is doing, targeting, our trans, companions within the LGBTQ spectrum, it's hitting close to home. I mean, it is hitting home,
Yeah.
and trying to defend against the messaging, from everything from anti-DEI, anti-trans legislation to don't say gay, take a silly LGBTQ themed book off the shelf.
Right.
It's like everywhere you turn, there's some sort of message that we have to continuously defend ourselves against.
Yeah.
And so I always take it back to the central nervous system, right? Because I'm a therapist. I really fundamentally think, okay, so what's the impact here on just our central nervous system? And the relationship to anxiety to that is that, most folks have some sort of foundational homeostasis. Well, you add on top of that some sort of, heightened central nervous system, and then you're revving, you're revving at like a heightened, more intense degree,
Yep.
than maybe most others who may not have to think about sort of what you're, being challenged with. And then you add on work pressures and, relationship pressures and all these other things, and it just keeps going up. And so the intensity of your anxiety heightens, it increases. And that's what can be so compromising and so challenging. And that's what I think a lot of folks are trying to take the edge off, right? By reaching for our phones or reaching for something to quote unquote numb out, right? We're just trying to find these resources, whether it's resourcing social media, resourcing a cocktail, resourcing, shopping trip, resourcing vacation, no matter what it is, all those are resources. And we're trying to reach for all these resources to bring down, right, that heightened anxiety level. At least that's what I see.
I agree 100%. It's like this constant, like, what can I do? It's interesting. It's almost like, what can I do to calm down and feel alive? Yet when we're reaching for some of those resources, it actually isn't helping us do that. I was talking to a client the other day, and he's like, he goes, I'm not really doing anything on Grindr, but I find myself constantly on there.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's kind of like numbing out, but then I get on there and I get really frustrated because it's the same guys, it's the same stuff. And then if you do interact, and he goes, so I walk away from that. And then, so of course I proposed to him. I said, so what would it feel like to not go get on Grindr? Or not go get on Grindr as much, or Scruff, or whatever, and it doesn't have to be just the hookup apps. I mean, I've had some clients who are like, I just can't not look at the news. I'm like, okay, but what if you didn't look at the news except for this much a day? Or you said, I'm only going to look at the news every other day, or you find a good news recap source. There's hundreds of them out there at this point. Like, we're going to encapsulate the thing, find something like that. But of course, the question then I posed to him was, how is the news serving you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that when we reach for these resources, Grindr, whatnot, et cetera, there's like a point of diminishing returns. We think that there's some sort of secondary gain that comes to it, right? It's titillating, it's exciting, it's maybe thrilling to an extent. Some folks may even follow through with it and, go and hook up, with multiple guys, or go to the bar, or, do whatever that is that they do. But then they come home with some sense of regret, some sense of that wasn't fulfilling, some sense of, no, that didn't really quite hit the spot, right? Literally. And so it's exploring, it's excavating what then, if not those resources, are going to help sort of fill that void, bring down that anxiety, create that sense of relief, create that sense of calm, right? And so a lot of times that takes slowing down, getting folks kind of quote unquote back in their bodies. I use this language all the time when I'm working. It's like, let's slow this down. Let's put you back in your body. Let's get you, let's get you out of the realm of being preoccupied with what's going on here, others, etc. And that's where also then, of course, when you left to our own devices, left to our own sort of internal resourcing, I see folks kind of like freak out. And this is where the anxiety generation comes in, because we don't know how to sort of resource internally, because we are so externally fed by every sort of, source that's out there. So it's kind of like we got to make friends with our internal world.
Absolutely.
That's really hard for folks. I think that's really challenging for folks to do, myself included. I'm not sort of saying that I'm an anomaly.
Oh,
here.
come on, Cory. You're a therapist. I'm a coach. We're supposed to have all the fucking answers here.
So. Well, I was gonna say we're sometimes the most fucked up.
That's why we went into this work. Let's be honest.
At least I have been at times in my life.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Let's be honest.
But it's interesting because I was talking to an acquaintance, let's say that, and kind of friend, but somebody I don't know super well, but just enough to like, hey, we interact, right? And he's like, I'm just feeling really empty right now. I'm like, really? And I said, okay, how do you want me to be with you? I always say that. How do you want me to be with you right now? Do you want me to be Rick like the acquaintance, or you want me to be Rick the coach?
Yeah.
He goes, both. I'm like, okay, I guess I can kind of do that. I said, why are you feeling empty? He goes, well, I'm having a hard time connecting. And I decided I was going to make my quest to like attend as many Pride events as I could. I'm like, okay. I said, what about that is making you feel empty? He goes, because I come home from them and I don't feel any differently. I said, okay, well, we need to stop. Kind of like you, stop. We need to take a breath. Let's define clearly what you're expecting to have happen. What would you like to create from being at Pride? What is the thing you want to experience? I said, because if you just say, I'm going to go to Pride and it's going to make me feel better, that's kind of a really kind of a low ball remark to make. Yeah. But if you're going to go, I'm going to go to Pride and I'm just going to enjoy being with others and know that I'm at least out of my house and in the company of my LGBTQ community. I said, how does that feel? And there was already a quick shift that started to happen. I mean, I could see him on camera as we were talking through this. And I'm like, okay, I said, now, if you want any more, you're going to have to pay me, because now I'm in full coach mode. But no,
right, exactly. I think you're so right. I mean, I think sometimes we often sort of participate and engage with some of these, Pride events, or, when it's not Pride, just any random, going to a bar type of thing. And the intention, the expectation, rather, I guess, to your point, the outcome is a little less defined. And right, there's a little less of. It's kind of like a crying baby. We have to soothe it. Like, what do you need? You need some formula. Do you need to feed?
Right.
Do you need to burp? Do you need a what? Like, and our central nervous systems do that. We get so twisted up that it's like I need relief right fucking now, but I don't know what it is. Right. And so I think it's twofold, Rick. I think your line of questioning in the cognitive realm was really, really helpful. I think there's also this emotional realm that we have to bring folks to tap into and kind of normalize this sense of loneliness, this sense of, what did you call it? Dread or whatever. Right. Not to like make it acceptable, but almost befriend it. So we learn to tolerate it so it doesn't drive us to some of these resources then that don't work. Yep. And really kind of help us isolate or get a little bit more precise on what might work, And I could speak so much about rigidity, because I think anxiety really makes us rigid. Hurt, pain, trauma that we've been exposed to as part of the LGBTQ, community makes us rigid. And then we take that rigidity and we go into a space and we say, okay, fulfill me, when we have this literal guard around our heart, that right, we're not going to let anything in, but, and so we put ourselves in those places, and then we walk away with see, I knew that was going to happen.
Exactly.
And we all, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's like,
it is.
So I went out to the bars and nobody came up to me, and it's like, okay, honey, I mean, I get what you're saying. And we also need to take like one more step and like get you to open your, mouth and say hello or connect in some way. But that rigidity keeps us so closed off because because of the trauma that we've been exposed to. So it's a lot of both and. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is a lot of both and. I love what you just shared, because this is something I've actually assigned clients who are like really struggling with confidence. Yeah. And I'm not like right out the gate, oh, okay, well, here's your first assignment. It is not my first assignment, guys. I work with you for quite some time before we get to this point. When I start seeing the shift beginning to happen, and they're like, okay, I really would like to be able to have more open conversations. And we've done some things around that. One of my little assignments, and this is kind of back in, like, it only applies if they're close enough to where I'm going to go just gay bars in the vicinity, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, this isn't going to work, but it can work because there's other ways to do this. My assignment would be, I know you're going to feel scared. So let's acknowledge that you're going to feel a little scared. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but I would like you to go to a gay bar.
Yeah.
And even if all you do is find a seat at the bar itself. In fact, I actually encourage that. And this happened to be a client that I could go, I want you to go to the Abbey. There's plenty of bars where you can find a seat, kind of. If you get there at the right time of day, you can find your little place at the bar.
Yeah.
And say hello to as many people as it feels comfortable that come up to the bar and order drinks. You don't have to have a whole conversation. Just look and smile and say, hey, how are you? And it could start with the bartender, because guess what? As a former bartender, I can have really good conversations with somebody sitting at the bar. And suddenly, if you're having really good conversations without interrupting them, okay, they got a job to do, okay? But if you get comfortable having a conversation with the bartender, and then the next time we do this, you're not only going to have a conversation with the bartender, you're going to have conversations with the next person who sits down next to you. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation. I just want you to start to break out of the mold of, I can't do this.
You're so right. I think isolation, I think loneliness, I think any sort of access, any sort of access point or exposure is so helpful. And I find myself making those recommendations also, folks, particularly when the loneliness or the whatever that internal experience is that's so intolerable. I'm like, with that, back to your point about anxiety, I always say anxiety requires action. Get up, get out of your house, let's go.
Yes.
We're going to put yourself in a different environment. It's essential that you do that. I'll tell my folks to walk. I'll tell them to phone a friend. I'll tell them to go be out in public. And particularly, one of the things that is somewhat disheartening about the LGBTQ community is so much has been taken online, and we've lost a significant amount of the in-person experience because of the gay bars and things like that, and just community. And so, and of course, that's also dependent on the region of the country that you live in, right? So that access and exposure is so important. Community is so uplifting, even if you're in it, right? Even with as much rigidity as you have, there's something fulfilling from the mirroring and reflection you get from affirmative others, right? When, you're either there and you're having your, same-sex attractions or, gender nonconforming, approach, and you're with other folks who also may be, doing that sort of, being with their friend groups or doing whatever. Like, there is a message that's sent to your spirit that says, it's okay to be here. It's okay to be you. And you don't get that from online communities. It's an immersive experience. You have to be in the space. You have to absorb it. Like, I'm a big energy person. You have to absorb that energy. And so with anxiety that requires action, you've got to put yourself in those places and those spaces.
I love this because I can relate to it so much, the anxiety to action. This is going to be a weird little story on it, but there are times that I get anxious. So I try to either go swim or go for a bike ride midday as my lunch break. Okay.
Yep.
But shit happens. And then suddenly I'm looking at the clock going, oh, when I thought I had I have it blocked out. Okay. So I do put it on my calendar, but sometimes the stuff happens. And suddenly that hour and a half, because I want like a good hour to go do the exercise, 30 minutes to grab a little eat, and then back to work. Right. Suddenly tick, 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 tick. Oh, I really only have an hour. I'm like, okay. Now the anxiety starts to set in, like, can I do it in an hour? Oh my gosh, I don't have my full hour, so I probably shouldn't do it. Well, then of course, as soon as I say I probably shouldn't do it, then the anxiety, like, okay, well, then you're not going to get into those cute little pants you just bought for the gay cruise, Rick. Okay, blah, 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 right? What I have found is so interesting is even if I get down to like, okay, I've got 45 minutes. Now I can make an interesting choice. I'm not going to get all my cycling gear on to try to get out and go for 45 minutes, because that really means I got 30 minutes, maybe at best, but I can sure hop in my car, drive over to the pool, because not very far. I get in that swim. I may only get 20 minutes, but I got out of the house, primary number one. Number two, I got my body doing something else besides staring at the computer. And I'm doing something I really enjoy doing. Now, of course, my weird little bald head is still going, yes, but you're only going to get 20 minutes in, and that's not going to help you get into those cute little pants still. Bullshit. Every little bit helps. And 100%. I think it's interesting to play those games with yourself, like what you predefine and kind of being back in that whole bar scene we've set up for everybody. Everybody's going to want a cocktail after this, I'm afraid. That's okay. Cheers to all of you, okay? What I found interesting in okay, but what if nobody talks to me? Well, then you just predefine the experience. Instead, what do you say is, I'm curious how many people I'll get to talk to. Totally different shift. And remember this. Yes, you're going to look at people coming in and they're going to be with friends. You're going to go, see, everybody's got friends. Guess what? Even if they're surrounded by friends, I can almost promise you that one person in that friend circle, if not more, is kind of feeling the same way you do. Like they're like, if suddenly everybody decided to leave, then I need to leave with the group. Because they're afraid to stay there solo and go, okay, now what do I do? And so just know you're not alone. You're never really truly alone in this. It's going to be uncomfortable, but give yourself that permission.
I so agree with even just a little bit. The little bit helps. If it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, do your activity, quiet that inner critic, or rather what I typically say is let's reparent that inner critic.
Ooh,
we don't want to wish it away. We don't want to wish it away. We don't want to say I shouldn't feel this way. We don't want to judge. We want to say I do feel this way. And, it's a both and here, right? Drawing from the improv days, it's a both and here. It's like, let's do this too. Let's do a little bit of this too. And I wanted to be inclusive because you said we set up the bar scene. It makes so much sense. And I don't know, I just ran with that reference, but it could be a coffee shop. It could be a street. It could be a bookstore. It could be whatever, but,
it could be going to a pride event.
It could be going to a pride event.
Pride.
Yeah, but it's just getting out in the space. Oh, and that was another thing I wanted to talk to you because about Pride Month and about anxiety with Pride Month. Let's be inclusive to where folks are on their journey. Speaking to your book about coming out later in life, because that could be a whole anxiety-provoking thing too. Where in your journey are you is in coming out to yourself, coming out to others. Whether it's sexual orientation or gender identity. Because I think where you are in your own coming out, and maybe not with just, sexual orientation or gender identity, maybe it's coming out with, a family member or a new partner or a child or a pet, like whatever, a new job, loss of job, anything. The Pride marker, the month itself serves as an annual type of something that sometimes it can be like going back to the family reunion too, or I'm going to run into somebody I don't want to see, or run into my ex, or run into that guy I hooked up with, in the porta potty, but whatever. Any of that can cause anxiety. And so, with anxiety, yes, it requires action, but I think it also requires just normalizing it. It makes sense that you'd be anxious. It makes sense. You've never been here before. You're embarking on this, you're coming out, whatever the case is, whatever the challenge is, and we're going to do this together. And I use that language with my clients because I really think we want to create this double inside that helps us on this journey. Mitch Walker talks about this, borrowed from Carl Jung, talks about this gay soul figure that we all have, in our psyche that partners with us in times of, stress, strife, trouble, challenge. And we want to develop that. We want to develop that voice just as much as we have that bitch inner critic that's in the back, seat always telling us what not to do, we need to develop. You want the two to hold hands together. And sometimes I don't know that we activate the other piece of the puzzle, the one that's like, wait, here I am deep in your soul, ready to hold that hand. And at times that may be the only hand you have to hold. Let's just be honest about that. You may be feeling that. I don't believe that's actually 100% true, because if you give yourself the opportunity to get in action, there's some other hands that can be held. Even if that hand is, I'm just going to, maybe I'm going to listen to Rick's podcast and realize I'm not alone. Here's two guys talking about this stuff. There's an action point right there. But I do want to encourage people to get out, because isolation, and COVID
did not help us here. Let's just be
No.
honest. If anything, it actually exacerbated it. I've had so many conversations, and I'm sure you have too. I can see, those of you watching this on YouTube, Cory is shaking his head going, yep, Rick, you're on to this.
Yeah.
I would say this is the most prevalent conversation I have had over the last couple of years in my coaching practice is I don't feel connected. I don't know how to get back out there. I can't find friends. I can't seem to find my space. I'm like, hey, you're right there with all of us.
Yeah.
All of us are experiencing this.
You are so right. You are not alone. We're all experiencing this. It's unlike something I've never seen. A lot of my clients, gay and straight, couples included, loneliness is so pervasive and prevalent. And I think we do a disservice when we say, you shouldn't feel lonely, or, oh, it's so sad that you're so lonely, or, oh, loneliness is such like a bad thing. No, loneliness is an emotion just like any other emotion. And, we want to build up some tolerance to it, for sure, some comfort with simultaneously to feeling that emotion. And we also want to come up with some anecdotes and make folks feel like they're not powerless to it. They're not helpless to it. There are resources, that we can reach for to really aid in comfort. But that, loneliness is just as much of an emotion as something else.
And if we turn it off, this is the thing. If you turn it off and accept, okay, this is my calling in life, to be lonely, you actually have started to shut the ability down to see it any other way. And the more we buy into it, it's almost like a muscle. The more we buy in and work that muscle, that, oh yes, loneliness, yep, this is what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be lonely. Unfortunately, your lovely little brain starts to go, oh, okay, this is our new norm.
But thankfully to what you do and the services I provide, I mean, we want to coach folks through every rep. You can't skip to the end. It's a daily practice. And some days you may want to phone it in. Some days you can probably do more reps than the other. But regardless, how do we partner with that? How do we not wish it away? How do we recognize it? How do we hold some grace and some space for it? And then how do we also resource to mitigate its impact, on our challenge, right? That's kind of how I talk through it. But
I use this metaphor, Cory, because we're such, and I know there may be some people who don't have a cell phone, but let's just, here's the metaphor. Back in the day, we used to watch, how many minutes are we using? Now that's pretty much non-existent. And if you can think about your ability to navigate your mental well-being, you actually have an unlimited calling plan to activate everything that can help you. And I haven't used it on the podcast. So guys, that's a new metaphor I've thrown out there for you. But if I'm going to invite you to think about your mental health as having an unlimited calling plan to activate whatever needs to be activated to help you through, whether it's loneliness, anxiety, you've got an unlimited calling plan to access within yourself. And then also, yes, get the external help too. But so much of what it is, one of my things as a coach, I always say, I'm just a catalyst. And therapy is kind of the same way. I'm a catalyst. I don't have all the answers. We'll get done with this. And I'll say, Cory, can you stay on for another 30 minutes? Now let's work on my shit, bitch. But I also know within myself, in those deepest moments, I know I said about my little swim thing, that's not even, I've had a lot of challenges recently in jobs and in the coaching going, ooh, But if I don't realize I got unlimited access to phone into my own self and my own resources, if I didn't activate that, then yes, I'm only hurting myself. So I wanted to share that with the listeners and with you.
I love that metaphor about counting in minutes and unlimited resource because, I think, but part of that's like taught, right? So growing up, small town Texas, coming out, I was always a little effeminate boy, so called, faggot since the third grade on. Imagine my mental health when I found my first, psychologist when I was 18, and Dr. Clint Sparks, he's so great with me. And he taught me how to do that internal resourcing. It's not like I just woke up one day and knew how to do it. But he was like, oh my God, you're so much more than you think, you know? And, you know, because I also thought that the sort of my inner sense, you know, was exclusively, you know, going to be fed from the outside. Right. And now we do need mirroring and reflection. Social emotional learning tells us I need to have the, you know, reflection of others to help build my sense of identity. But LGBT affirmative psychology also tells us that inside, right, there's a church and only you can go there. There's inner wisdom in your gay psyche, right? In our gay psyche that tells us, hey, knock on the door. You're not alone. I'm here with you. Yep. Let's do this. Right. And it takes coaching. It takes facilitation, like you said. It's like, there's no magic, there's no curtain here. There's no like magician behind. And I'm not Oz. I'm just, you know, asking questions and being a really bold advocate, you know, to help folks find some of that inner resourcing and inner strength and gay spirit and gay psyche that lies beneath the surface.
So interesting. And the thing that I love about what you're bringing up and what we've been talking about is we can take this out of the realm of pride and out of the realm of being LGBTQ, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because that's never going to go away for us. I mean, if we're queer, we're queer. Okay. But oftentimes we do the code switch like, okay, but now in the workplace. No.
Yeah.
No, it's not any different. You're going to have to reach in. I love the church metaphor. You're going to have to take yourself to church and you're going to have to go find that little seat in the pew of you and go, okay, now I'm in the work environment. It may not have a damn thing to do about gender, sexuality, any of that stuff. And you're like, oh no, I shouldn't go for that promotion. Or, oh, look, you know, I'm never included. Okay, come on, girlfriend, boyfriend.
Yep.
Let's go. We're going to church again. Yeah. There is no siloing and separating. Now, there are different situations. I'm going to 100% agree to that. But whether you're finding a spouse cheating on you, or you're tired of being passed over for a promotion, or you feel like you're never included in something, guess what? That's all in your little church.
It's all in our little church. And, you know, connecting the dots, like something that you just said made me think about just this church, you know, Jung psychology of this gay psyche, this gay spirit. There's this inner knowing of difference that you can't turn off, that Rick sometimes I think gets loud and becomes like this narrative of like non-belonging. Like, I'm just so different. I don't fit in with any group, any community, anything. I'm so unique. And 100% that is accurate. But it also comes with it this emotional experience, right? Yes. Of isolation, deprivation. And of course, we know from a belonging standpoint, isolation is, you know, I mean, there's a reason solitary confinement is like one of the worst, you know, in prison things, because we are not meant to be, we're meant to be social creatures. We're not meant to be alone. So it doesn't mean that sense of non-belonging, or I'm not like others, or I am different, suggests then that you can't be in community with, right? You can't be a part of. In fact, that's the whole notion of inclusion. Can we, you know, can the whole be greater than its parts type of thing, right? Absolutely. But we have to help then folks recognize that our own gay psyche, our own difference, our own experience of difference is unique, but it doesn't have to have this overall emotional experience of non-belonging or turn into the narrative of I don't belong within any group. A lot of folks, I think, struggle with that, which then, of course, equates to loneliness and et cetera.
Exactly.
And then, of course,
anxiety and all that stuff again.
Yeah, well, it's all a thread. Yeah,
it's all a very big thread. And I hope that we have created a thread for anybody listening today that, happy Pride, but also realize pride is a piece of belonging. And if you start to go, oh, I don't belong there, and then chip, here we go. And basically, hey, just think of Pride Month and celebrating all that stuff being yet another avenue for you to bring yourself to your own church, to exercise your unlimited ability to be part of something. Even if you feel like you're standing on the sidelines, I'd much rather be standing on the sidelines, being the little wallflower, but I'm with my peoples in however that looks for you, versus standing on the sideline in my own little house here and not getting out there and integrating in the world.
Yeah, and that is so key because pride is also resistance. Pride is
Mhm.
also a march for social justice. And it's not just about you. It's about the collective. It's about the beacon that pride becomes to others who also have the sense of difference and queerness and non-belonging because of the community that they come from. So don't take that for granted.
Mhm.
Get out there and pride it up.
Pride it up. Well, Cory, I love this. If somebody wanted to, get in touch with you, where's the best place? I know you've got a practice in the Southern California area, but what's the best way for them to access, services?
Yes. Yeah. So the best place is CorySchneiderPsychotherapy.com. That's my website, CorySchneiderPsychotherapy.com. I am licensed in California, New York, and Texas states. So I predominantly, provide psychotherapy services in those states, but I also do couples coaching regardless of where you are. So if you're an LGBTQ queer couple, regardless of identity, and you and your partner are having some challenges, kind of the same old conversation, same old struggles over and over and over. I specialize in emotionally focused therapy, which is an attachment sort of style gold standard when it comes to couples, which really we just look at attachment, theory and attachment profiles and see how those contribute to conflict. But yeah, that's the best way to find me. CorySchneiderPsychotherapy.com. Send me a note, send me an email, whatever.
Awesome. And we will have all that available, guys. As always, we always have links for everything to all our amazing guests. I'm so glad we connected, Cory, and had this conversation, and love how you're supporting our community and the rest of the world. Like, you're not just the LGBTQ guy. I know you got, you have those others, those straight folks that are as fucked up as we all are. So,
The straight folks.
Let's just be honest, we're all on a journey of being fucked up in our own way. So
100%.
I just love this conversation. And again, guys, if you ever need support, coach, therapist, it may not be Cory, it may not be me, but please do not isolate yourself. Tap into that unlimited ability to use those resource minutes up the way you need them. You've got unlimited resource minutes, and step into your own church of being who you are. And again, guys, happy Pride. Keep going, doing what you're doing. We'll be back next week with another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men, Gay Talk. And don't forget, the third Monday of each month, we also have our Gay Men's Chat that everybody's welcome to. And just go to the gaymenschat.com and you can sign up and be notified. But again, Cory, thank you, brother. So good to meet you. And thanks for sharing yourself with my world today. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Rick. Happy Pride.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus Gay Men, Gay Talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.